Hello, and welcome to our webinar that is called How to Conduct Effective Contact-Free Recruitment During the COVID-19 Outbreak. Difficult times. My name is Matt Byrne. I am founder and co-owner of Bluespoint Limited. We're an IT recruitment company based in Burton-on-Trent, so we service the Midlands and the rest of the UK when we can.
And good morning, I'm Rej Abraham, Managing Director and founder of ABPM Financial Recruitment, based in Nottingham, recruiting qualified accountants on a permanent and interim basis across the Midlands. Morning, everyone.
Thank you, Reg. By the way, we're not just randomly thrown together. We've known each other for a number of years now. We've worked together on, we refer business quite a regular basis because we're IT and finance. They're quite complementary, and we occasionally work together on high-profile recruitment projects as a team.
Indeed, which have proven to be quite a successful formula in terms of identifying key skills on behalf of clients and combining our resources to get successful outcomes.
That is correct. Thanks, Reg. So, rather dramatic images there. Why we've created this webinar, it is a dramatic situation, of course, although there are some positives in it from a recruitment point of view, I think. We've created this webinar because we're all working from home now, as far as we can, key workers aside. Recruiters are not key workers, it turns out. No surprises there, but the work still goes on. Some of our clients have put everything on hold for now until they know the situation, how things will end up. But some are recruiting in earnest. That's the situation we're in.
And that's a similar scenario for ourselves. I mean, we've had some postponements rather than cancellations. Assignments that are progressing are typically those that are urgent and or are retained. And we find ourselves at the moment trying to advise our clients and ourselves really just to try and keep a clear head of in these matters, and that in terms of the businesses in the current crisis are trying to do their best and navigate their way through what is clearly uncertain times for their staff themselves and their businesses. I must admit, at the moment, when I think about recruitment, it's trying to be as effective as possible and relevant. I suppose the fact of the matter is there are some very good people still looking for new roles at this moment in time.
Yep.
And if you are considering hiring, guess what? There are people willing to listen. And that certainly is true across IT and finance. Equally, bringing people on board at the moment will have its implications in terms of how one will interact with them. And clearly, at the moment, working from home is a common practice and has been for many years in many other organisations.
Thank you, Reg. Yes. So it's a change of, it's a shift really of focus here. Recruitment is, generally speaking, is exactly a people-oriented process. It's usually we meet people in person, face to face. We do, the client does as well, as far as we possibly can, because you get to know somebody the best that way. But it's no longer possible, so we have to work with what we've got. So how do we get around the issue? By the way, what we're talking about today is not rocket science. It's more a question of mindset and preparation, I think. But here are some of the tools that we use. Obviously, we want our clients, anyone, to use a recruitment partner like us to help them recruit most effectively, but it's possible to do it yourself. And so some of these tools are completely free and available. You'll know them already, perhaps. Some of the top tools we recommend are, do you want to talk about this, Reg?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, in real terms, as Matt says, we'd ideally like you to have us as a recruitment partner, as events dictate. But equally, we use these very same tools ourselves. And in real terms, we're talking about LinkedIn, where although you can pay for postings and adverts, I mean, messaging people through LinkedIn and posting articles about your activities and your business's requirement is free. Indeed is a well-known product, which is an aggregator of various websites and often your own. A quaint old-fashioned item that I've used very successfully over many a decade is a thing called a phone. People seem to use the phone predominantly for texting and watching movies and sports by the look of it nowadays, if my own family and children are to go by. But they certainly do have a significant application in this current setting. I won't go on about video interviews because that's more Matt's area of expertise, but clearly video interviews have a significant part to play. in this current climate, and they have done actually for the past couple of years, to be fair, in terms of accessing and making recruitment processes a wee bit easier, if at all possible. Matt, over to you.
Well, I know, Reg, thanks. I know that you are currently doing video interviews because we don't have a choice. We've advocated it for a bit of a longer time, perhaps because IT people are more IT savvy, generally speaking, than finance people, possibly. But they seem to like the video interviewing more, perhaps. Anyway, so you can use, for example, Skype, FaceTime, WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, Microsoft Teams. All of those things are useful. We use a recruitment specific one, which you can see on the left of your screen. That's a picture of me and a colleague, Steph. It's called Hinterview. Hint of an interview, it's called. The benefits of that are we can record it, send it out to our clients. They can review it at their leisure and annotate, share views and things like that. So that's what we recommend. But any video interview platform will do. There are some things to consider when doing video interviews, I think, Reg, and you are aware of these.
Well, no, indeed, and the points I would sort of highlight is be mindful of how you. I'd like to use the word conduct yourself, but I suppose it's as much about how you are aware of your presentation, because often you are now seeing yourself as much as the interviewer. So as an interviewer, feel comfortable that you make them a fairly informal as possible setting, because a lot of people will be unfamiliar to this. But equally, you'll find that people aren't necessarily at their easiest. So do check what's in the background. Be aware I don't play the piano, my family do. I am wearing a rather trendy pair of Bermudas underneath, but my upper body looks fairly smart and appropriate. And do look at the camera when you're speaking. I mean, I'm just repeating what's on the slide, but stating the obvious is very relevant when we find ourselves in this situation.
It's true. We have actually thought about these things, believe it or not, when preparing this presentation. Reg consciously has put that piano there, I think, because he wants us to insist on him playing a tune. I don't know.
No, I'll pass on that for the time being, but thank you.
We are both consciously dressed casually, in keeping with the theme, but if you were to have an interview online, I would suggest dressing up rather than down, as in normal interview advice. I've instructed my children to leave me alone for the next 20 minutes. Whether or not they observe that, we will find out. And we've organised this whole webinar remotely, by the way, so it can be done even with two technical Luddites like us. We are here now doing it, and these technologies do exist. So thank you. Some of the things we use, other tools, to continue the theme of tools that we've used before, and Reg, I believe you use these as well. These are behavioural assessments. You have done, yes.
I was going to say, sorry to talk over you, Matt. I mean, the fact is, I was a late convert to some of these, but actually over the last 3-4 years, I've actually sort of, with Matt's encouragement and utilisation, seen the validity of them, and that we've found them to be very powerful in supporting selection processes with clients. And often, we will talk about something relating to gut feeling later, but things around the emotive feel of an appointment is substantiated with better, more powerful science, I suppose.
Yes, agreed. So we won't talk about these in detail, but they are in order. GIA is intelligence assessment. HPTI is to do with high potential. TQ is to do with emotional intelligence, and PPA is the one we use the most, which is behavioural assessments. And they are all objective tools that give you a platform on which to base hiring decisions and management decisions as well. They're useful. One final one that we use that, Reg, you don't, is because it's technical for IT. So again, I won't talk about it in any detail, but it's IKM Tech Check, an objective tool for assessing somebody's abilities to do a particular IT speciality. So we use that a lot. So,
and what sort of take-up have you had with clients on that, by the way, Matt?
On the IKM?
Yeah.
We use it all the time, Reg. They like it. Sometimes clients have their own technical assessments that they use. Drawbacks of IKM are they are theoretical. It doesn't really reflect what you can do practically speaking, but it's a very good starting point. So in the example you see there, there's some red sections, some yellow and some green. Green is obviously the ones you are most proficient at. You'd probably focus on the reds. You've chosen these subjects before the test begins, and the reds indicate some level of weakness, so you'd focus on those and talk about them in the interview, probably.
Okay, thank you.
A good start. So, question for you, Reg: is it possible to recruit completely remotely?
I suppose as we stand today, the answer has got to be yes. I think it's as much about sort of mentally accepting that this is a plausible and viable technique that we can facilitate. The reality is we as humans are fundamentally social creatures, and we set a lot of store in what I mentioned a term earlier, the gut feeling. How many occasions when you are a hiring manager or a recruiter, do you find a client or a candidate referring to their gut feeling about the appointment or the selection process? When we don't meet someone in person, this is pretty good actually, the way we're conducting this session, I think. But we know, and we do get a sense of the individual and their style and their mannerisms and their emotions. But actually, you're still feeling there is something missing. So, in a way, the assessment tools that Matt made mention of earlier are even more important, I think, because to replace the gut feeling aspect of our selection process, we do need to use more objective tools. And above and beyond that, I think the interview process can fill and follow a fairly familiar formula. But I'd encourage you to reflect on bringing into play earlier something that would be prepared for an interview, e.g. a presentation, a business case or similar. And the other pieces that you need to think about as you go through the recruitment process is, what is your policy currently for working remotely, and are you set up to support a new hire on that? The other piece is around communication, frankly. We've all been trying to work out our internal communication methodologies. Clearly, as a business and a new person joining, that communication methodology really has to be enhanced and robust. And finally, I suppose it's all well and good getting someone on board. Once they're on board, how are you going to support them in terms of getting their work done and how they communicate what they've been doing? So digital communication will be vital to succeed in the current setting, and also going forwards. I think we're going to see a much greater evidence of people interviewing remotely to facilitate pace, speed, and access. So, personally speaking, I've been running a number of interviews through this process, and it's been good. It's made life a lot easier in terms of people's use of time, etc. And it's evidentially proving quite successful in terms of the current assignments that are moving forwards, albeit under quite difficult conditions.
Yeah.
Anything to add to that, Matt?
I would say the digital documentation, are you set up to deliver somebody a contract electronically? Sometimes you require a physical signature being there. I don't know. But as you say, it's a question of mindset, isn't it? Gut feeling is something that it's very difficult to shake off. But I've been proved wrong in the past, and I've been in recruitment for a long time. So it's perhaps a benefit to be working with objective tools as well, relying on it less.
Indeed.
So I'm going to talk about what to look for in candidates next. This is all, again, pretty obvious stuff. It's not really anything new from what we looked for before, but the online version of life gives you more opportunity, or some different opportunity, to work out if these things are good. Communication skills. Are we communicating well now? I think we are doing okay, but we're relatively used to this kind of thing. Some people are not, but communication skills are still key, even more so online. The preparation point there, number 2, is, are they ready for this interview? Have they dressed up appropriately? Have they got the right background? All those things before. Are they presenting themselves well or not? I've done interviews before where people have been in their pajamas, almost literally, and it doesn't give a good impression at all. Reliability. Are they on time for this interview? Do they treat it as a normal interview? You can gauge someone's approach to recruitment and to life by the way that they approach the online version of life as well. And good test results are as important as before. You can use them as a basis, and they are, of course, done online anyway. So the same things as before, but in a way magnified because online is online. That's what I would say. If you want to add to that, Reg, feel free.
Yeah, I was going to say, you make reference to the good test results. I think, that needs to be put in context. I mean, the test results aren't a pass or fail as such, are they, Matt?
Not the personality ones, no, not pass or fail, no. The technical ones, yes, more so. But no, there's no such thing as a wrong personality. But you can have an inappropriate personality or behaviour for the particular job we're going for, and these tests will reveal that. There's always a gap, though. There's always a gap between the ideal behavioural profile and the person. So you can, if you know where you're starting from, then you can address those gaps at least.
In terms of the management, coaching, etc. No, absolutely.
Yeah, that's right.
As we look towards the actual sort of practicality of the end of the selection process that we've done remotely, and if you have identified said individual, how are you actually going to get them on board? I think that's pretty important in terms of the onboarding and new recruits in particular. Communication is going to be even more important, I think, at this phase. I mean, how does the new recruit feel about being remote from their workplace, their colleagues, etc. So it's really important that Matt talked about it earlier. Even simple things like getting a contract out to them. Are you in a place to afford a digital contract being sent out that they can sign? Ongoing communication with them to their arrival. Creating the sort of out of work environment where whereas normally you maybe go out for a sandwich at lunchtime or early evening after work, drink or sit down and have a coffee. We can still have all of the above in this sort of virtual world of ours. I mean, I got into the space around having after work drinks over Zoom. Rather odd. You get to pick your own beer and you don't have to buy around. So there's obviously some benefits in that, albeit some of my friends would say I never buy around anyhow. And then from a business-wide perspective, clearly, the early morning call, the weekly call, the team meeting, I would suggest that the new recruit who has signed on the dotted line becomes part of that ahead of their arrival. So there's a familiarity to their colleagues and their managers, and then the broader team. And in many ways, I suppose one would sort of want to check, even more regularly. I mean, both currently within your own team and your colleagues, and your clients and others, as well as, any impending arrivals. And I think that actually also leads quite neatly onto, because one of the features behind bringing people through a process currently has got to also look at people's motivations for joining and their motivations around the workplace. Matt, I think you guys have done quite a bit of developmental training on motivational maps, etc., I believe.
We have, yes. Thanks, Reg. By the way, what you say is particularly important at the moment. Particularly, onboarding is always a key part of getting somebody to buy into your company and to just even start and stay there. And I don't know about you, Reg, but we've had a few people who are going to start with our clients, but we don't know exactly when. So start date has been put on indefinitely almost, but they still want them when this is all over, which it will
Indeed
be. So what they're doing is that they're trying to follow our advice, keeping them involved. So yes, motivation is very important, and this is a live viewer bonus gift. It says here, look at this. We have used these products called motivational maps for a long time. They're very useful. They are, of course, more relevant for people who are already working for you, not for people who are starting, although it can be useful for them as well. So we use them after somebody has been in place for about 3 months. We measure how motivated they are. These, a bit like the PPA before, are very accurate. And it can tell you how motivated somebody is, what motivates them, and how to improve the motivation. We really recommend those. So how do you keep someone motivated if they're working from home? It's more difficult than if they are in the team, especially if they have children running around behind them asking questions, and you have financial concerns, and all of these things make it more difficult. I'm not going to talk about it at length now, but if you're on the webinar now and you're listening live, we'll give you 3 motivational maps for your use, and they're very useful. So you can use them for yourself or for your team, or both, of course. And we'll be in touch with anyone who watches this webinar live to talk about this. And if you're watching on record, get in touch and we'll sort you out for them as well.
Excellent.
So yes, that's what we are going to do. Thanks, Reg, for bringing that
Excellent. I think they're sort of winding this up now, aren't we, Matt? Is that where we're about?
Yes. That's
Indeed.
it. It's only going to be a short presentation, but just below 20 minutes.
Indeed. So from my side, many thanks. It's a new vehicle for me doing these webinars. So Matt, thank you for inviting me in on my first ever live show recording. And for you guys, thanks very much for watching and listening. I mean, I suppose above and beyond everything, I'd like to note a really important word of thanks to all the key workers in the NHS and on the front line confronting this COVID-19 and how they are putting themselves out for our society as a whole. And I suppose ultimately I want us all to stay safe. So listen to our leaders is all I would say to end this note on. Thank you.
Yes. Thanks, Reg. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
All the best.